Hello everybody, I'm Jonathan. Welcome to another video. In this video, I will make a little dog, but in a different way. I will give you a little bit of advice about drawing at the beginning, and then I will get into the vector design just by hands. This is gonna be awesome. And if you want to be closer to me and learn about my illustration process and techniques, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss anything. As you can see here, I've started the character shapes with really slight pressure. This means that we don't know how this will look like. And with more details your eyes will see, correct? More pressure you can add over the lines to define them better. And of course, as you can notice here, I'm doing the both sides without using the mirrored mode. So try to keep both sides equal each other by comparing them. So please don't focus in just one side. Try to make them at the same time, you know. I'm doing this dog by my head because I already have the visual library fed by observing a lot, and you guys can do the same. My advice about to improve your drawings, try to use your eyes and try to draw everything around you, alright? Alright, this sketch is done. Now I'm gonna start to vector this character using my fingers. I'm using here the vector tool, and also I'm using here the less polylines as possible, as you can notice here, because I can have more control over the curves. And even for me, this was really tricky because it took me a really good time to adjust these curves, you know. Then of course I needed to speed up these adjustment things. So don't worry, you don't need to skip any step here. Now I will create the dogs here just by inserting 3 points. This is enough. And as you can notice here, I'm converting this top corner, this point, to be rounded. And to be honest, I don't think you need to have an Apple Pencil to make a vector design. You know, you can use a mouse or whatever you want. You don't need to have a pencil. But of course, if you have an Apple Pencil, just do it and use, because you're gonna have much more accuracy than me here. So I'm enjoying so much doing this challenge, and I'd like to invite you guys to try to make your design stuffs by your hands. This is gonna be really fun to you as well. And if you don't have an Apple Pencil to make your sketch, you can just grab an image from internet and try to draw over. And I'm not explaining here each of these adjustment stage because this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And this is a really good opportunity to have this talk with you and explain a little bit about my process and some advices. So now I'm gonna select the ellipse tool to insert the eyes. For me, of course, it does make sense to use vector tool to make a circle shape. And here I'm gonna save more time inserting these eyes like a symbol shape. And now I'm gonna insert the trapezoid shape to make this now. And I like to use as much shapes as I can because shape is much more easy to manipulate, to control. And you can adjust as you see more properly. And here I'm gonna insert a triangle to make the dog's nose. And now I'm gonna rotate this. Now I'm gonna insert the inside part of the ear and make it a bit darker. And you can also apply this with curves. And here I'm gonna flip this and drag at the layer inside of this ear, as you can see here. And now I'm gonna use a nice technique. I will use the pen tool and apply a stroke a little bit with width. And here I'm adding a curve in order to make the eyebrows. And I'll select here and duplicate this object, and you can drag and rotate like I did here. Now I'm gonna open the layers panel and disable the sketch layer. If you like flat shapes, you can left this like this, but I want to apply a node tool. You just need to select the points that you want to apply the rounded corners. As you can notice here, I'm applying to all points, and now I'm applying just to the top corners to make more curved. And I'm gonna convert this triangle shape to make it more curved. And after that, I will give just a little bit of adjustments in this triangle shape, and I will apply the node tool to round this shape. And now I'm gonna activate this sketch again in order to know about which position the pupil will be. And as you can see here, I'm selecting the duplicated eyes, and I will turn on these eyes to black, a bit black. And here I'm gonna decrease the size, as you can see. And just remember that these eyes are mirrored by the symbols, and I've just turned off the synchronize function on the symbols in order to align the pupil to the center. Now I will select these eyes and I will turn on the synchronize function, and I will add a light with the circle here. Now I'm gonna duplicate this by dragging and drop with two fingers pressed. And now I'm gonna select the vector tool to make the ellipse shape, you know. And I'm gonna select here the width size. Then you can tap at the center until the right side. So you can add a bit of curve here. And as you can notice, I don't have a lot of precision with doing by hands. This is the bad thing, but alright, we can just take a little bit of time to adjust these things, you know. And to start a really simple light, you just need to select ellipse and drag ellipse over this nose, alright? Quite simple. And please pay attention to this process. I'm selecting here the pencil tool and I'm selecting the color. And I've just drawn here the forehead shape. And basically here is the place that the character will have the lights on the face. And I'm applying here the Gaussian blur. As you can see here, this Gaussian blur is quite important because you can define this as a method to make your shading stuffs. And now I'm gonna add here the shadow behind these eyes. I will use here the pencil tool. I don't know how I did this, but for me it's quite good. I will let with this shape and just give you a bit of adjustments here. And now I'm gonna apply the transparency tool. As you can see here, this is really important because you can bring a sort of opacity between these shadows and lights. And now I've just flipped this shape to another eyes, and I'm applying here the inner glow effects, as you can notice. And I really like to use these effects to make my shading stuffs. As you can notice here, I'm applying the blend modes, so you can play around these blend modes to see how the colors will work together. And here I'm applying a little bit of the saturation over this light because I don't like to oversaturate the light. And now I'm applying the inner shadow, as you can see here, with a little bit of saturation over the shadow. Alright, and you can control the shadow by the options of this panel below. And I really recommend you to play around this to see how it works. And now I'm gonna apply an inner shadow to this nose, as you can see. But I'm gonna use this inner shadow to be a light. And I'm using here the blend mode to change these effects. And I'm shading this character just by using layer effects basically. Of course, with a little bit of shapes with Gaussian blur, but the layer effects is something that I use a lot. And I'm just adding here a little bit of points using node tools, as you can see. And don't forget that you can copy these layer effects and apply to another ears, as you can see here. And now it's time to apply these effects to this body shape, right? And here I'm applying a little bit of shadow over this body, a bit more shadow with saturation in the bottom side. And make sure that your layers is correctly organized, so you can arrange them by the layers panels. And here I'm applying at the same time the shading to these legs. And with more you define your character, more details you can apply, and you can spend more time trying to adjust these curves, these points, you know. like I'm doing here. So now I'm gonna select the vector tool here, and I will apply these lines to be the division between the arms or with the body, you know. I don't know how to explain these things, but okay, this is the front side of the hands, I guess. And now I'm just applying here the same side to another one, and I will apply the belly with these circle shapes. And now I'm gonna select these two lines, and I will apply the Gaussian blur effects, as you can see here. And basically this means that I'm doing the shadows between the dog's arms with the belly, you know, to not mix this. And here I'm applying the transparency tool with a bit of curves. So as you can see here, this can measure a little bit of shadows levels, you know. And at the layer you can drag these two lines inside of the body. And here I'm using the color picker to grab the shadows, and I'm gonna select the body and click on insert inside and apply the inner circle over this body. That it is behind of this head, so you can add a little bit of shadow. You can use the Gaussian blur in order to make this shadow more soft, and you can use the transparency tool to match the colors. And here I'm gonna use the same process that I did for the shadows lines between the arms and the belly, as you can see. And with a single line I'm using the Gaussian blur and applying this to be the light of these arms. It's working really nice here. And basically I didn't use the fill tool a lot on these vector shapes. I just used the fill tool to make the shadows, but in this case I'm using lines to make the lights, you know, so you guys can apply the Gaussian blur to make over these legs as well. And you can bring these lines to add more light just by changing these curved shapes, as I'm doing here. And this works really nice actually. So be sure that the shadow is well applied before you play around this. And here I'm just trying to adjust this fill tool of these legs, as you can see. And I will fix some curves here that I see that is not very correct. I will sharpen some vertices, and I'm gonna just fix these belly shapes, right? So I will open the layers panel and I will draw the shadow shapes behind of this dog, and I will apply a black shapes. And I'm gonna use my technique that I really like to use for the shadows, and I'm gonna use the Gaussian blur, and I will add the transparency tool, as you can see. So basically this character is ready, so I will try to add here more shadings over this head, because we can always try to see how the things looks like. For me, these shadings will give me a little bit of depth over this head, you know. I'm gonna add here cheeks. This will be a light all over these cheeks. And as you can see here, I'm using the elliptical to make the transparency more soft. And you can duplicate this shape to another side. Please, if you like it, click add the thumbs up, because I will know if you want to see more videos like this. And I'm really excited to announce that I'm gonna open a Patreon, because I want to invest my time doing these arts and sharing my knowledge and assets and brushes as well. I'm gonna upload this Patreon my stuffs there, my project source, so you guys can have access. And I'm gonna try to develop some tutorials, specific tutorials that will help you. Alright, if you guys want to know more about my artwork, you guys can visit my website or my Instagram. I will add the link at the description below. And thank you so much guys for watching these videos. I'm really happy to have you here, and see you in the next video.